Well, this is Baruch Fleischman, and I am here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. And let me get this lined up. As you remember Rabbi Mimran, and I just love his book. This is part 2, Sources for Jewish Meditation. I'm going to say this year at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and we'll also put it out in the Vegas network of Rabbi Mimran. The righteous ones of early times, and here's what we're reading right here, wouldn't wait an hour before praying in order to focus their mind to Hashem. The commentaries explain that they would clear their minds of worldly matters and connect their minds to the blessed master of all things with awe and love. This would result in 9 hours of their day. They would spend 9 hours a day where they would leave their learning and work for the sake of solitary meditation and attachment to Hashem. They would visualize the divine presence. They would see it above their heads as if it would completely envelop them while sitting within the holy light. So imagine yourself sitting in tremendous light and you see all of these wonders of Hashem over your head. That's what we're talking about here. We will endeavor to show in this chapter that meditation has played a central role in Judaism for millennia and does not exclusively belong to Eastern religions at all. As found in the Jewish tradition, the original word in Hebrew for meditation is hisbodedut, the verb to meditate, or if we say in Breslev, hisbodedut. So he says is represented by the word hisboded. The root word badad means to be alone, self-isolation. Sefer Chovot Olvavos, Shar Cheshbon and Nefesh, these different places show you this idea. So he says one of the later commentaries, who was Rabbi Meir Levush, also known as the Malbim, clearly states that Yitzchak Aveinu was engaged in a classical form of meditation. Ber L'chai Roi was the place where the angel had appeared to Hagar, after she and Ishmael had been driven away by Sarah, and since an angel had appeared there, this place had become a shrine. The Malbim writes, this was a holy place at the time because an angel had been seen there, and Yitzchak went there each afternoon to meditate. He used that place to be hisboded. It is significant to note that Malbim uses the term hisboded, such as we have seen refers to the inner isolation of meditation. The Sefer Haredim, so he writes like this, writes in Siman 65, in many Sepharim authored by the Rishonim, we find that the pious Jews used to practice isolation, meditation, and mental connection with Hashem. After isolating themselves, they would disconnect their minds from all worldly thoughts and attach their consciousness to the master of the universe. The Arizal as well taught that the practice is extremely beneficial to the soul. Well, let me say that again. The Arizal as well taught that the practice is extremely beneficial to the soul. The Rambam wrote that the word shev, remain, like stay, in the verse where Hashem said to Yaakov, arise, go to Beis El, and remain there, stay there, Shev Shama. He means to meditate. That's what that means there. And that Yaakov was told to focus his thoughts on Hashem through meditation. The Shulchan Aruch in Orach Chaim 98.1 also states that meditation is a way to prepare for the highest levels of prayer and for prophecy as well. So this was the practice of the early Hasidim and men of virtue. They would isolate themselves and concentrate on prayer to the point of becoming completely disconnected from the material world and fully absorbed in the realm of the mind. Thus they would come close to the level of prophecy. One of the greatest of all Kabbalists, Rabbi Chaim Vital, wrote in his legendary work, which is called Shari Kedusha, The Gates of Holiness, that in reality it means much more. It is a process by which a person separates his physical body from his soul. One must seclude, be hisboded, in his thoughts to the ultimate degree. The more one separates himself from the physical, the greater will be his perception. The Ralbag, now we're going way, way back to Rabbi Levi ben Gershom, which is one of the original yeshivas in Ashkenaz, a major Jewish philosopher, often known as Gersonides, clearly writes in Melchemet Hashem that the receiving a prophetic revelation requires the isolation, once again is bodedus, of the consciousness from the imagination. Now that's an interesting concept. So Rabbi Mimran has been talking about. Rabbi Avraham Maimonides is the son of the famed philosopher, the codifier and physician, which is known as the Rambam, writes in his work Sefer HaMaspik L'Ovdei Hashem. This is this is the Sefer that what is for someone who's a to serve Hashem. This is the sufficient things that you need to do. Maspik. That there are two types of isolation: external and internal. Now he's talking about the isolation, I think, that is necessary to be misguided. External isolation is nothing more than physical seclusion. But internal isolation refers to the meditative process where one isolates himself both spiritually and mentally. A number of biblical verses are seen by Rabbi Avraham as referring to such a meditative state. What is even more important is the fact that the Rambam himself speaks of his bodhidus with respect to the prophets, saying that it was one of the important techniques through which they attained their prophecy. That he writes their high level. From his son's writing, we see that this is speaking of meditation. Now, going back over here to Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, who is also known as the Hidon, he says, writes that the root of everything is meditation, or his bodhidus. It brings you back to the center place. It is a very great and lofty concept, making a person worthy of all holiness. When a person meditates, he is clothed with holiness. When one meditates, he is attached to God. He is attached to God even with regard to his mundane bodily needs. This has been Baruch Fleischman, and we've been on the Tikkun Elevator Kollel and thinking of some ideas from Rabbi Mimran, bringing us some background. This is Baruch Fleischman.